Hello friends, and welcome to my channel once again. I am here at Taronga Zoo. It's school holiday here in Australia, so you can see how many kids are in there, and the parents, the family gathered here to watch the seal show, which is one of the features of Taronga Zoo. Taronga Zoo is quite close to my heart, as when my children were young, very little, we used to take them to this zoo, and as the years, over 30 years now, I still love the zoo and I still love visiting, so I am taking you today. So please enjoy the show, this video exclusively for the seal show, and comment please.
Little bit of housekeeping to go over. So the first thing I ask of everyone today is to please stay in your seats. I know it's super tempting, especially for our little ones, to get up. I can guarantee that everyone here will have the best time possible if you stay where you are. Now, if you do need to exit the theatre at any time, that's totally fine. The back gate where you entered through this afternoon will be accessible, and at the end of the presentation we'll be opening up the side gate here for anyone who would like to explore the lower half of the zoo. We do ask, however, when you're moving around the theatre to please use the stairs, and throughout the presentation to keep the stairways and that middle aisle nice and clear. Now, for everyone in the first 3 rows, do you guys know where you're sitting? Yeah, I heard some people say it. For those who don't know, you are in our splash zone. So, if getting a little drizzle or completely drenched by our seals is not your idea of fun, now is your cue to move. But other than that, who's ready to meet some seals? Awesome, guys. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes, and we hope you enjoy your day at
Energy. I'm Keeper Paul, and the other keepers are meeting today are Michelle, Addie and Jacob, and we, together with Taronga Zoo, are really proud of the Aboriginal history of the area that we're in. And this is Camaragal. Camaragal women, in fact, were great providers for their families out here in Sydney Harbour over thousands of years. Generations, in fact, collecting seafood in a sustainable way would connect them with a lot of wonderful native marine life. And today we'd like to share that connection with you by introducing you to some of our marine life, our seals. So would you like to meet a seal? Not bad, but this is school holidays and we really want to hear that energy. Do you want to meet a seal? Kids, that's the energy we really want to feel. And you know what, we're going to put that to use straight away. We're going to meet one of our nicest natured seals, one of our real big guys, and he can sometimes weigh up to 300 kilograms. So we want to really hear it in a moment's time as we meet Pepper, a Californian sea lion that came to us many, many years ago. And he was born in a zoo in Europe. So get ready to give him a big round of applause, everyone. Let's meet Pepper. That's right, Michelle. Let's check our watches. There he is. There's Pepper. How about a big round of applause for Pepper again? Now, your job is to really make lots of noise. When Pepper touches his nose against his shape, His shape is a seal, and you'll be seen in just a second, and he's going to show you just there. All right, he's in the water. A whistle will be blown twice. He has to search for his shape. That's a car. All right, thanks a lot. I'm not wearing my proper glasses. That's why I didn't see it properly. So he's been presented with a lot of different shapes just to confuse him. And I'll explain what this is about in a moment. Shape discrimination is really important for the seals, and I'll explain why. He's got it. Make lots of noise. Now we're going to exchange shapes. Every one of our seals at Taronga Zoo has a shape that is unique to them. You see, if all the seals are in the water together, the biggest and most dominant will try and get all the fish. There. Great. So when they're all in the water, a whistle's blown twice. They have to swim up and down to find their own unique shape. You see, if we just left it to them, the biggest and most dominant tries to get everyone's fish. So we separate them using shape discrimination. Now Michelle, he's got it wrong. That's okay. We just get him to settle down a bit. By nature, Californian sea lions are really highly strung, really highly motivated seals, but they can get distracted, which he's just got there. So he's just calmed down now. Michelle's changed hands, and he should get it right. There. That's really important for us too if we've got to medicate one of our seals too. What we do is put the medicine inside the fish, hide it there, and we get it to them using that. That's shape discrimination, and that is Pepper. He's a big guy, and he's a mature seal. You can tell that because he's got a big bump on the top of his head. It's called a sagittal crest. Now, we like to present Californian sea lions. They're one of the types of seals that lives the closest to humans. In the wild, they're found from Vancouver in Canada down the west coast of the USA to Baja, Mexico. We're lucky enough to have seals in our own waters too. In fact, over the last couple of decades, we've had more and more seals arrive in Sydney waters. They're usually fur seals. In fact, New Zealand fur seals, confusingly enough. Their name's a little bit confusing. More lately, they've been known as long-nosed fur seals. They're found in New Zealand, hence the name, but they're also found in Australia too, along our southern coast, all the way down to Tasmania and across the southern part of our country. This guy was found on Bondi Beach about 12 years ago after a savage shark attack. So he was given the name Bondi. Why don't we give Bondi a big round of applause to make him feel welcome? Yeah. That was a big long hello back. Now, we didn't think that Bondi would survive, but he has, and he's remained a great ambassador for his species. But it takes a lot of care looking after these animals, and Michelle is going to show you what that care involves. The first and the most important behaviours that Bondi learned was husbandry. Now, that requires a lot of trust, and you can see the trust that Bondi has in Michelle. A simple hand cue meant that Bondi opened his mouth so that Michelle could check his teeth and his tongue. Also, he lifted his flipper on cue. If Michelle notices an unusual movement or a limp, then she would just get him to present his flipper, just to make sure there was nothing wrong there, or a cut, or a graze. Getting him to lie down nice and still like that now means Michelle, give him a reassuring scratch. Just like that. She's talking to him, and she's got a good relationship with Bondi. But you see, animals are really good at hiding anything that may not be quite right with them. Anything that's like an illness or an injury. By pressing Bondi in certain parts of his body, if Bondi was to flinch, that could indicate to us that there's something not quite right with the animal. Now, if they require further attention, like an X-ray or an ultrasound, what we do is get someone like Bondi in this sort of position. We prepare them for that ultrasound simply by using something like a shoebox with cords coming out of it. We'll walk around the animal, practice the ultrasound, so when the real procedure is necessary, we don't stress out or frighten the animal at all. All part of the ongoing care of these really precious animals. When you and I go to the optometrist or the doctor and get our eyes checked, we can get really confronted there. You can see the trust that Bondi had in Michelle, and you got a tongue poke just then, a sneaky one, and a flipper stand. And that, everyone, is our really cool fur seal. That's Bondi. As he leaves, have a look at the scar on his left-hand side. That was the shark. Like I said, he was put up on the table. We didn't think he'd survive. About 10 years ago, one of our scientists at Taronga put a tracker on a seal just like Bondi, much, much younger, and we found that that seal had swum all the way to the South Island of New Zealand and back again in one season. Now, how the seal swam there and back and found food in the middle of the Tasman Sea is still quite a mystery. They're really quite curious animals. We're going to bring a seal out to the front. We're going to demonstrate how we build a relationship with these animals in the first instance. If you ever see a seal in the wild, certainly don't get up as close as we are with them here. We have to work very hard to develop trust with these animals in the first instance. Addie is going to demonstrate how, in fact, we do that. Now, we work hard to protect these animals, of course, here at the zoo, and we also promote doing that in the wild as well. Where you see where this animal is coming out in the moment, you'll see a sign right behind it. But let's have a look at that animal first. His name is Diego, named after the city San Diego, where there's a big population. How about a big welcome for Diego? Now, when Diego first came to us from the zoo in Europe, this is some of the first things that we did. We trained him to lift his flipper, and then we started to come in first and started to touch him in those sort of areas. Once that occurred, he started to get a reward for allowing us to get closer and closer to do those things. The next thing was to allow us to touch him. We moved closer to the area, like the chest, and then we started to rub him around those areas. Once he accepted that, we started to think, okay, we're nice and comfortable with that. Then we started to get nice and close to his mouth. First to get us close, and then to touch him around the lips. Then Jacob would start to move his lips apart, and that's how we started to get a mouth open. Which is what we need. You may have even noticed there that his teeth are dark. That's not a sign of ill health. As they get older, their teeth darken with what we think is a natural bacteria, which we think protects them out there in the ocean. But protecting them out there in the ocean is really quite important too. You see, over the last couple of decades, we've overfished our oceans in many parts of the world, making it hard for a lot of wild marine animals to find their food. But there's something that we can do together which really does make a difference. And to tell you about that, we're going to introduce you to another seal, a seal that represents one of the rarest types of seals on Earth. They're found in Australia, in the southern part of our country. In South Australia and some parts of southern Western Australia lives the Australian sea lion. An important part of our breeding program here at Taronga Zoo is the Australian sea lion. As you walk around the zoo today, check out a lot of the different species. You know that those animals chosen to breed are usually those animals that are most at risk in the wild, including this one. Everyone, how about a big welcome for one of our cutest animals at the zoo. This is Nala, our Australian sea lion. Now today, Nala and Michelle are going to show us the life of a seal. Isn't she absolutely beautiful? Now, we're biased. We think that Australian sea lions are one of the most beautiful species of seals on Earth. They can actually sleep, like all seals, out in the ocean, but it's on land where they do get their best rest. They check for danger too. You can see how flexible she is in her chest and the vertebra allowing her to do those things. On their rear flipper, they've got 3 claws on nails that, when exposed, can act like a built-in brush, reaching virtually every part of the seal's body. Their front flippers too help. Now, by rubbing themselves, they can discard old fur, particularly in the process known as molting, a bit like you kids when you change your school uniform. It looks a bit funny, but if you went to a wild seal colony and they're floating in the water, you'll see a lot of seals doing that. When they put their flippers above the water, they're actually cooling off. That's called thermoregulation. A bit like you and I sweating or perspiring. We do that to cool down. Seals put their flipper above the water because it allows the heat to escape through that hairless part of the body. Right now, that's like you and I using a face washer to clean around our mouth. They clean around their whiskers, which is really important. Now, she's particularly graceful and we love enjoying it as she porpoises. Porpoising is a natural behaviour that allows an air-breathing animal that lives in the ocean, like a seal or a dolphin or a penguin, to travel long distances and take that important breath that you may have just heard. They can get so quick that, in fact, sometimes they can catch a boat or a trawler and tear off a piece of netting, which she's done here. Now, she's ripped that netting off and she's shaking it around and shaking any fish free that have been caught in that net, giving a clever animal like a seal the opportunity to get a free feed. However, what she's done now has frustrated the fishermen, but also put herself in a great deal of danger. Can you see that? We've seen a lot of marine creatures come into our wildlife hospital. We've got some up there at the moment. Not seals, but turtles and seabirds that have been entangled in all sorts of stuff. Nala here has been entangled in some piece of netting. Life for a seal in the wild isn't always easy, and human impact is one of their biggest challenges. I think she's doing pretty well so far. What do you think? Well, you may have noticed today just how good our seals have been at catching the fish that have been thrown to them. That's because their sensitive whiskers help with the sense of touch. Why don't we have a better look? She's got particularly long whiskers, so why don't we have a better look at those? When she's in position, right now, I'm going to count to 3. We want you to yell as loudly as you can, whiskers, and stare at Nala's face. 1, 2, 3. She's giving you a really good look. Up. There you are. On the end of every whisker is a fine nerve ending. When they're out in the wild, seals will fold their whiskers forward, and they can detect the movement made by fish that are swimming around in front of them. That way they can feed themselves at night time or even in murky water. On an average day, Nala can eat upwards of 5 or 6 kilos of fish. That's over a bucket of fish. But what happens when those buckets run out? Oh, great throw, Michelle. Any more there, Nala? Oh, she's going all the way to the top to check it out. I think Nala's probably going to come down by the water's edge in a moment and help Michelle, and together they're going to have a look into the water and see if they can find any fish there. Anything there, Nala? No. Sadly, that's the case for a lot of Nala's wild cousins. I touched on it earlier. Over the last couple of decades, by overfishing our oceans in many parts of the world, including right here in Oz, we've made it hard for a lot of wild animals to find their food. But there's a choice that we can make together which really does make a difference. When next looking for seafood to purchase, look for that symbol. Thanks, Nala. That blue and white tick that Nala just pointed to comes from the MSC, Marine Stewardship Council. Choosing seafood marked with that symbol means you protect fish stocks, jobs and the environment. Choosing sustainable seafood marked with MSC means you protect fish stocks, jobs and the environment. Keeping someone like Nala a lot happier, as you can see, for a lot longer. And that's a really cool seal, a really cool smile. Everyone, that's Nala and Michelle. Now we want you to stay just where you are. Our seals and our keepers are coming out to make their final farewells. Don't forget to choose MSC. You too can be a champion for the wild. We'll be out